Hey guys, Kyle the Death Knight of Anime here, bringing you my review for Attack on Titan Season 3, Episode 7. And yeah, this was, again, another chapter like last week where there was just some crazy epic shit that was being revealed over some crazy epic reveals, like over and over again. And like it's one of those things where it was just one reveal after another. I was like, Jesus Christ! Like it didn't. It. I guess the. I guess the. I guess we could say the previous episode was just like a prelude of the epic shit because we just got tons more epic shit revealed in this chapter. Although it be it's one of those things where it's a little sketchy too. Um, so to start off with, one thing I immediately have to give this episode credit for is right up until the point where Kenny appeared. I'd say the first 3-4 minutes was one hell of a reversal action rush with the in in favor of the scouts when they were fighting the interior the interior squad. And what I liked about that whole action scene is that it took advantage of basically everyone in the scouts and gave everyone something to do, and everyone in their own way contributed to in some way to taking down the interior squad. Of it again, this is of course pretty much before Kenny showed up because after Kenny showed up, that's when things got a little more difficult for the scouts. But of course, even after Kenny arrived, they still kept the action high, which to me is a feat that they could continue, which to me is in its own way a certain feat that Studio Whip managed to continue that after the craziness of last episode. Um, and again, speaking of crazy reveals, because we got a lot more of them in this chapter, and okay, there's kind of a double edged sword to basically a lot of the reveals to a lot of the reveals that we got in this episode, which is that the thing is we definitely got a lot more of the reveals in this chapter with basically just the origins of basically Freda's power and where it comes from, and just how the walls how there's this one Titan that existed and created like the walls. But the thing about the thing about this, especially this reveal, and I failed to mention it in my last review, is that the one thing to kind of take in mind with this episode is the race family's ability to forge memories. So as of right, we basically don't know if it's basically we don't know if from the way it's talking, it sounds like this like ability to forge memories might only be possible within those who have the Titan's powers. But it's it's still kind of a situation where there are certain things that Rod says that we probably need to take with a grain of salt. We need to take with a grain of salt because we definitely don't know as to what he's lying about and what he's telling the truth about. Like I will say that there are definitely some things in this episode that definitely showcase of what he is telling the truth about. But yeah, it's the one thing I found interesting about this episode in general is that it created this very gray area in which us as the viewers, it's kind of hard for us to really tell exactly what is the truth and what part's the lie. It's a very interesting dichotomy that was created with this chapter. Like for instance, the whole origin of 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 Freda's power, like the very beginning origins of the power. That part we could argue might be a lie, but at the same time, the whole reveal of Freda's Titan powers and whatnot, despite the questionable aspects of it, do still provide us with some amazing world building and added a whole lot of validity to basically everything that's been going on in the story up to this point, and especially how desperate the government was in previous seasons to get hold of Eren. Like that basically alone basically shows as to why they were so desperate. Like it all traced back to Rod. Like Rod's like this was kind of proven a while ago, but it all traces back to Rod's influence. Like Rod was basically behind everything having to do with Eren, and in fact, I wouldn't be surprised if like the first time he transformed, like Rod basically knew whose power that he had Freda's power. So there's that as well, and the thing about it is like without Freda's power, the Rod had lost the race family had lost the race family or Rod in this case, basically lost the control of the people, which is probably what Grisha intended when he attacked the race family. He wanted to wake everyone up to the truth of how, and he wanted to wake everyone up to the truth, and without that blocker in the way, the, the this whole rebellion was pretty much actually possible. So it's it's one of those things where almost Grisha was pretty much setting it was one of those things where in a way Grisha was pretty much setting these was basically setting the stepping stones in order for Erwin to begin the in order for Erwin to even begin the whole uprising or the whole rebellion to begin with. So it's really kind of fun and funny in that respect how just these little details kind of play so much into the story. Um, Now, and honestly, with how desperate Rod was acting, and the thing, and going back to the whole lie truth thing, with how desperate we see Rod acting after Kenny slit Aaron's head, makes me think he is in fact hiding a critical detail in everything he basically told his story. Like there is definitely something that Rod isn't telling, that Rod definitely didn't tell Historia, and Historia herself even asked the $1 million question about why the race didn't do anything. So that's yeah, and that's again it kind of brings up the sketchiness of it was definitely around the back half of this episode for sure, where I can safely say that Rod was starting to seem a little sketchy in how much he was telling the truth about and how much he was lying about. Um, and can we take a moment to appreciate both Historia and Aaron's development in this chapter? With Aaron, he decided to openly forsake his own dream for what he believed would benefit mankind. Like it's one of those things where again it plays into the whole what's the truth and what's the lie, but it's in terms of what we basically saw Aaron say and do in this chapter in this episode, it's it's not the typical behavior you'd normally see from a shonen protagonist. And the fact that he was offering himself up as atonement does basically show that he was does show that even taking the racist family's memory manipulation into in the possible race family manipulation into account, uh, there is still some truth to what Rod said, or at least enough where, or at least that there was enough truth in what Rod was telling Historia that he realized that he realized pretty much the entire mistake of him being of him, I guess, well, you could say him being born, but also the fact of the circumstances by which he became a Titan shifter. Like he openly admits that there was a mistake, that his father might have in fact made a mistake, and he wants to correct that. Although although it's although I'm not going to lie, although I'm not going to lie, um, and I do like the fact where he was in this mentality of he's in the mentality right now of I'm willing to do whatever it takes, even if it means sacrificing myself to protect humanity. So I do like that development. Although I'd be lying if I said it didn't start to get comical after Historia broke the needle and attempted to free Eren. That definitely kind of had me both raising an eyebrow and also kind of chuckling a bit. Like just the whole thing of when Historia was basically breaking Eren's chains and freeing him from his shackles. I was like, and Eren was just there sobbing like, please kill me, please kill me. I'm like, dude, I think it's a little. I would just kind of take it right now. Like, don't. I wouldn't bother. Just let's let's free you first, and then we'll sort that shit out later. Like I definitely liked Historia's whole mentality with that one. Um, and and with Historia, it's kind of hard to say she didn't go up a few notches in terms of my favorite Attack on Titan females list. I mean, I know there are going to be people who are going to be against her for forsaking humanity and not going with what her father wanted, but I really like how basically everything that she learned from Ymir ended up coming back into play here. Like Ymir's words, Ymir's lessons, everything Ymir taught Historia, like she basically took all that to heart and said, "Fuck everything else. Fuck what my father says is the right thing to do. I'm gonna do what I think is the right thing to do," and it starts by freeing Eren. And that was just kind of I just loved seeing Historia take charge. Like it was just such a reversal from basically what we've seen of Historia up to this point, and it and the funny thing about this development on both for both of these characters is that in a lot of ways it was basic. The Historia and Eren basically switched roles from basically switched roles, and it was done in a way where it still fucking works. So, yeah, I gotta give the story credit for that too. Um, Now, let's kind of backtrack a bit and talk about the pacing of this episode, because it ends with Rod transforming into a Titan, which was fucking epic, by the way. But with this episode, I don't mind in saying that honestly, pretty much two anime onlys out there were already kind of reaching the climax of this arc. So with that said, it really does beg the question of how much longer this arc is going to last, because this arc this arc might really only last under half the season's length, like probably 9-10 episodes at most. I'm gonna go with 10, just for the fact that I want to say that the most arcs do probably only last do, that even the that most arcs have probably lasted like at least in the double digit. At least the first arc has always kind of lasted in the double digit range. But yeah, I can really only see this arc lasting 10 episodes at most, which in a way for basically the good or bad, I kind of see is a good thing, because don't get me wrong, that there were that there was tons of shit that was revealed in this arc, but believe it or not, there's actually just as many crazy epic stuff and reveals in the next arc, like a return to form with some epic Titan action and some just as heavy reveals that I'm not gonna lie are gonna probably be a little obvious to some, but definitely emotional for others. Like a lot of we got a lot of reveals in this arc, but there's gonna be just as many reveals in the next arc too. So, and there's just gonna be as many story elements too. So in a way, I'm all for it. Like basically give the like pretty much give the like pretty much give this whole like pretty much give the next arc as much room as you need to, because it is going to be worth it. Although I will say, um, with basically us already being close to ending this arc and only 12 episodes after, um, I'm if I'm right in my thinking about the ending, it's gonna be an even bigger cock tease than season one's post credit scene. Just telling you guys that right now. But yeah, guys, that's my review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe. Follow me on Twitter and Facebook. Dead Knight of Anime, signing off. Later, guys.